Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're tackling something really interesting that's probably on your radar.
Definitely. Especially if you're following anything about GLP-1s like Ozempic or Wegovy.
Exactly. We're talking about emotional hunger and how it sort of connects with weight loss, particularly with these new medications.
And look, we know you want to get up to speed quickly, get the real insights without getting, totally bogged down.
Yeah, and we think we've got some perspectives here drawn from the thinking of someone named Dan Hollis. That might actually surprise you.
Our mission, let's say, for this deep dive is to really unpack the difference Hollis saw between actual physical hunger
Right, your body needing fuel.
and this other kind, this emotional hunger. We're using Hollis's ideas as our guide here.
Perfect. So let's just jump in. Here's a question for you listening. Have you ever felt that, that feeling where you just have to eat something, even though your head's telling you, I shouldn't be hungry right now? It's not just your stomach growling, is it? No, it feels different. And Dan Hollis, he had this really compelling way of thinking about what's actually going on there.
He did. A really key part of his thinking was this concept he called emotional hunger.
Right.
But he didn't frame it as, just another craving you got to fight off. He actually described it as, I think the phrase was a question, a need asking to be seen.
Oh, wow. A need asking to be seen. That completely reframes it, doesn't it?
It really does. Because think about it. How often do you grab a snack when what you really are is just exhausted?
Or lonely, maybe. Or just totally overwhelmed with everything.
Exactly. Hollis suggested that we often mistake those signals, fatigue, loneliness, stress, even boredom. We misinterpret them as physical hunger.
Like the body's signaling system gets its wires crossed somehow.
Kind of, and the message that comes through is just eat. But, and this is key, Hollis didn't see this as some kind of personal weakness.
Right, not like you failed because you wanted cookies when you were stressed.
Precisely. He called emotional hunger wisdom misdirected. Your body's trying to tell you something important, something wise.
But you're trying to answer it with, I don't know, chips, which doesn't really fix the underlying thing.
It doesn't fix the boredom or the stress or the loneliness. So Hollis's advice wasn't about restriction, not immediately anyway. It was simpler.
What was it?
Just pause. Get curious. Ask yourself, okay, what am I really hungry for right now? What's the actual need behind this urge?
Turn inwards with curiosity instead of just reacting. I like that.
Yeah. And this brings us, interestingly, to semaglutide, Ozempic, Wegovy, these GLP-1 receptor agonists.
Which started for type 2 diabetes, but then, whoa, the weight loss effects.
Exactly. They help regulate blood sugar, slow stomach emptying, make you feel fuller. So the big physical hunger signals, they get turned down.
Okay, so if that loud biological noise gets quieter, what happens to that other hunger, the emotional kind?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And Hollis had a fascinating perspective. He didn't think semaglutide just magically erased emotional hunger. No. He said it. How did he put it? It just makes the biological noise quiet enough to finally hear it.
Wow. Okay, so the physical static goes down.
And suddenly you can hear that quieter signal, the emotional one, that might have been drowned out before.
Huh. So it's not a cure for emotional eating in itself.
Not according to Hollis. He saw it more as this unique opportunity.
An opportunity.
How so? Well, with those really intense physical cravings, less demanding, you get this window. A chance to, as he put it, rebuild identity, behavior, and emotional awareness.
Okay. So while the drug is helping with the physical side, you have the mental space to actually work on the patterns, the habits.
Exactly. The stuff that was tied up with food for reasons other than just physical need. It's like trying to have a serious conversation in a really loud room versus having it in a quiet one.
You can finally hear yourself think, basically. So semaglutide isn't the solution for emotional eating.
But maybe, Hollis suggested, it creates the silence that lets you find one. It gives you the breathing room to figure out what you really need.
That makes a lot of sense. And it leads right into how Hollis thought about weight loss more broadly, doesn't it?
It does, because his teachings weren't just about, calories in, calories out, or how GLP-1s work biologically.
There's more to it.
Much more. He really emphasized listening to the silence that tools like semaglutide might create. He said something like, when food isn't your automatic go-to for comfort or distraction, the truth shows up.
The truth shows up. What did he mean by that, do you think?
Well, I think he meant the truth about why you were eating, the underlying reasons. And he felt this explained why just relying on willpower for weight loss often fails long term.
Because you haven't dealt with the root cause,
Yeah.
the habits, the role food was playing.
Exactly. You haven't addressed the rituals, the identity maybe even that got wrapped up in your eating patterns. It's not just about not eating the donut, it's about understanding why you reached for it in the first place.
So for Hollis, lasting weight loss, it's not just hitting a number on the scale.
No, not at all. He framed it as building a life where food isn't your only coping tool. That's a much bigger project, isn't it?
Yeah, it's about building a whole different support system for yourself, finding other ways to handle life.
And he saw semaglutide's role in that context, not just as an appetite suppressant, but maybe as a pause, a breather, a reset.
Like it buys you time.
Buys you time and space to actually design that new system, those new coping mechanisms.
Okay, but he also cautioned about speed, right? I remember something about fast results.
Oh, absolutely. He really stressed that fast results don't mean lasting ones. Seeing the pounds drop off quickly, while maybe encouraging initially.
Doesn't mean you've actually changed the underlying patterns.
Right. The scale doesn't measure self-trust or new habits or emotional resilience. So he urged people to think long-term. What happens during, and crucially, what happens after or alongside these kinds of interventions.
Landing for the what next.
Definitely. And he had this interesting idea that every pound lost means a habit must be replaced, not just removed.
You can't just leave a vacuum. You have to intentionally put something else in its place.
Exactly. Stop the late night snacking. Okay, but what do you replace it with? A relaxing routine, reading, talking to someone. And he also said something like, biology might give you a head start.
With something like semaglutide.
But only identity keeps you moving. Meaning, the changes have to become part of who you see yourself as, how you operate day to day.
It's about shifting your self-concept, not just your diet.
And that's why he talked about alignment being more important than just sheer discipline.
Alignment meaning what?
Meaning getting your choices about food, yes, but also sleep, stress management, joy, connection, getting them all lined up with your deeper values and goals.
So that feels less like forcing yourself and more like living in a way that feels sustainable.
That's the idea, creating a life where the healthy choices become the more natural ones.
Okay, so if we pull it all together, Dan Hollis's core message, based on what we're exploring here, seems to be that tackling emotional hunger and achieving, lasting well-being around weight, it goes way beyond just the physical stuff.
Absolutely. It requires empathy for yourself, awareness.
And asking that question he mentioned earlier.
Asking the question behind the craving. What's really driving this? Is it physical hunger or is it stress? Boredom? Loneliness? What does this feeling actually need?
So the real work, as he might put it, isn't just about managing the physical side, whether through medication or willpower or whatever.
No, the real work is understanding and addressing those deeper emotional needs that might have been using food as a substitute answer for a long time.
And his ultimate point seems to be that this kind of transformation, it's not about becoming some totally different person.
Right. It's more about clearing away the noise, maybe the noise food was making.
The noise that the physical hunger amplified.
So you finally have the space, the clarity to actually be yourself, more fully yourself, without food having to play all those extra roles.
That's a really powerful idea. So wrapping up this deep dive, the big takeaway is how deeply intertwined our eating, our weight, our emotions, and just our sense of self really are, according to Hollis.
Yes, definitely. And maybe here's a thought to leave you with, something to mull over from Hollis's perspective. Consider what kind of noise maybe food might be creating in your own life.
And if things were quieter, what deeper needs might actually be asking for your attention?
Yeah. And think about it, whatever your approach to health is. What habits might you need to consciously replace rather than just try to eliminate? What needs to be built, not just taken away, for real, lasting change?
Definitely food for thought. Pun intended, I guess.
Yeah.
A lot to consider there.